Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasul Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. نويت تعلم وتعلم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع والانتفاع والرسالة والاستفادة وحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير وابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته بقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Once again, this is the today's lesson. This is actually today's lesson. We're caught up now. MashaAllah. All right, so we're going to read, probably go ahead and read chapter 10 and 11. And after that, we should have, tomorrow is Saturday, and Saturday reading chapter 10 and 11 today. We'll do chapter 12 and 13 tomorrow, inshallah. Sunday, we would do chapter 14 and 15, inshallah. And Monday, we would do chapter 16 and 17, inshallah. And that will leave chapter 18 and the conclusion of the book. So we will probably go a little bit over Ramadan, but essentially, we would have went through this entire book for the month of Ramadan by Allah's fadl and His permission. Alhamdulillah. So, continuing on, Imam Al-Haddad, he starts off by heading this chapter as being how to rebuke the soul from being lazy in obedience and inclined towards disobedience. So he starts off by saying, if you feel, O disciple, that your soul through laziness and sloth moves away from submission and good actions, then lead it back by the reins of hope, reminded of what Allah has promised those who obey Him: vast bounty, permanent bliss, grace, and contentment, eternity in the vastness of the garden, honor and high rank and eminence accorded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His servants. If you feel that your soul is leaning toward rebellion or heading for sin, then use the whip of fear to rebuke it, reminded of that with which Allah has threatened those who disobey Him: humiliation, calamity, debasement, and vengeance, expulsion and deprivation, dejection, and loss. Okay, so all of these advices are very clear. If we're having issues, some of us need to be motivated with positive affirmations. So we should use all of these positive things, beautiful things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have promised the obedient, faithful servants to be able to receive on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah and thereafter, and being admitted into the garden. Probably the most gracious and most beautiful blessing that we will receive in that time is the ru'ya, the ability to see Allah, the reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever way that will manifest itself. We don't know, we don't speculate. All we know is that we will have a vision of Allah, the people of Jannah, on that day and the hereafter, and it will be the most beautiful and glorious thing that anything in the creation can ever imagine. May Allah allow us all to be people who witness Him and see Him. SubhanAllah. All right, and then there's some of us who need to be threatened. Some of us are hard-headed. We need slaps upside the head and kicks in the butt. So you have to rebuke yourself. You have to be harsh and say, hey, you do this and you don't do this, you're going to the fire. And you remind yourself of all of the things that could happen to you if you continue to be a pencil head. Okay, so he continues on by saying, beware of falling into error of those who strayed and belittled the garden and the fire. So some people are foolish enough to discredit the reality of the Jannah or the Nar. You know, when it happens, it's going to be a rude awakening for them. It already is for those who've already passed on and they're in the grave right now, having already answered the questions, not answered the questions, and had that iron hammer beat upside the head and the grave constricting, and all of the stench and the putridness of hell being witnessed to them every morning and evening, and the opposite being done for the people of Tawheed. May Allah make us the people of Tawheed. So he continues, magnify what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have magnified, and act only for the sake of Allah, for He is your Lord and you are His slave. Ask Him to let you enter His garden and access protection from His fire by His grace and His mercy. Should Shaitan, la'natullahi alayhi, may Allah curse him, tell you that Allah, the transcendent and high, Jalla wa Alla, or subhanahu wa ta'ala, should Shaitan, la'natullahi alayhi, tell you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, neither needs you nor your deeds, that neither your submission will benefit Him nor your rebellion harm Him, reply to him, this is true, but I am the one in need of the graces of Allah and the good deeds. I am the one who benefits by submission and is harmed from disobedience. This is what my Lord has said to me in His noble book and on the tongue of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is in reference to the fact that some people, it's like, well, this doesn't do anything for Allah, and then you take this very laissez-faire attitude towards worship and obedience. Allah doesn't care if you go to the fire, if you go to Jannah, etc. It's all these things that people had these arguments. Some of us have given it to ourselves, or some of us have witnessed it from others in one form or fashion, whether they were saying it to us in response to what we were doing or just saying it in general. We've all heard it, and we've all, whatever. But this is a trick of Shaitan. And yes, it's true that Allah does not need our worship. We do not benefit Him by worshiping Him, etc., etc. However, we were commanded to do so. So in face of the command, it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to do what we were commanded to do. We were commanded to stay away from sin and oppression. We were commanded to adhere to worship and obedience. And it's incumbent upon us to do what is required of us by our Creator if we expect to be rewarded by our Creator. And for those of us who don't care one way or another, that's a mental health condition that I cannot help you with. You need to seek counseling and you need to repent. Okay, so he continues. If the devil then says to you, if in the knowledge of Allah you are among the fortunate, you will inevitably end up in the garden, whether you submit or rebel. And if in the knowledge of Allah you are among the wretched, you will end up in the fire, even if you are obedient. You must ignore Him, for the decree is hidden. Only Allah knows, and none of creation has anything to do with it. Short order. You could be from the people of the fire. I could be from the people of the fire. I don't know that. You don't know. We don't know which state we are going to end up in after it's all said and done. Our responsibility is to have this sound intention to always strive towards doing what is pleasing to Allah. The end result is up to Allah. It's none of our business at the end of the day whether Allah sends us to hell or to Jannah, because our lives do not belong to us. They belong to Rabbul Alameen. They belong to our Creator. Allah's Adl and Adl. He's the just. Therefore, if we have done what we were commanded to do, we have good hopes and expectations that our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala will admit us into His garden, as long as there's not something internally that He knows about us that we didn't reveal to people and we chose to ignore for ourselves, thinking that it was okay, and we end up getting cracked upside the head because, we come out the house, we super Muslim, we go in the house and we, it happens. May Allah protect us from nifaq, hypocrisy. So again, the bottom line of it is, at the end of the day, whatever our decree is, it's none of our business. And it's not that Allah has compelled us or made us do these things. It was that internal mechanism within each one of us that brought us to that state. And we only acquired the compensation for what it was that we really were. Allah did not force us to do anything, or He does not force us to go to the hellfire or force us to go to Jannah, because there's no justice in that. It's just that He knows. and we don't know. Submission and obedience are the surest proof of good fortune. Nothing stands between the obedient and the garden should he die in a state of obedience. Whereas disobedience is the surest proof of wretchedness. Nothing stands between the sinner and the fire should he die in a state of sin. Very clear. You want goodness? Be obedient. Publicly, privately, at all times. You don't care what you get, be disobedient. Publicly, privately, at all times. And you will definitely get what you got coming to you. May Allah protect us. Chapter 11. The states of the soul and being patient. Know, disciple, that the beginning of the path is patience, and its end is thankfulness. Its beginning is difficulty, and its end is bliss. Its beginning is toil and weariness, and its end is opening, unveiling, and arrival at the ultimate goal, which is gnosis of Allah, ma'rifah of Allah, knowledge of Allah, experiential knowledge of Allah. Arrival to him, being comforted by him, and standing in his noble presence with his angels standing before him, the one who makes gracious patience, the foundation of all his affairs, attains to every goodness, reaches everything that he hopes for, and wins all that he seeks. All of this is just a reminder and a admonition to keep trotting the path, stick to it. Yes, there's a lot of bumps and bruises that come along with being obedient, that come along with not taking advantage of all that the dunya has to offer you, and learning to say, no, I'm doing this because my Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala commands better of me. You know, it's difficult. Some people make that extra $50,000, $100,000 a year, and you stuck making $25,000, $30,000 a year. You know, alhamdulillah. It takes care of your needs. Be thankful. Something much better is going to be waiting for you because of the fact that you got your money in a halal way, opposed to the ones who wouldn't compromise deen and principles to get theirs, because they're going to have to answer for that at the end of the day, no matter how much money they give away in charity. Again, he continues. Know that to begin with, the soul is enticing. It exhorts to evil and forbids good. When one resists its commands and patiently endures what comes from contradicting its whims, it becomes a reproachful soul. The reproachful soul is changeful because it has two faces, one serene and the other inciting. It can be this on one occasion and that on another. If one then gently guides it and leads it by the reins of desire for what Allah has in store, it becomes serene, enjoying good and finding its pleasure and comfort in it, and forbidding evil and being repelled and fleeing from it. Okay? The nafs is a very tricky creature. It constantly can take a person and vacillate it between obedience and disobedience. And the key to all of this is being one who is conditioned to resist the temptations and the urges of the nafs and maintain focus and obedience. Okay? And it's difficult. You know, we're not going to get into all the technical stuff about this because it's supposed to be light. It's difficult. But at the end of the day, going back a couple chapters, how do we deal with this? How do we make these things easy for us to do in controlling the nafs and controlling all of these thoughts and whatever that come up inside of us throughout the day? Dhikr. Being constantly in a state of remembrance and worship of Allah in one form or another, whether it's through the obligations or whether it's through the daily wird that we establish for ourselves. Constantly sticking to this is that barrier that's being used to keep you from falling into the heedlessness, because you're constantly keeping yourself in a state where you're focusing on your Lord. You're not allowing yourself to drift off and watch all of the pretty things that go up and down the street, shiny objects that's all around the world attracting you every 30 seconds, turn your hair from this way to that, calling you to go in your pocket and spend your money, to take off the hijab, to shave the beard and stop praying. All of these things. We have to be focused on that. And the only way we can do that is to zikr of Allah. Zikr of Allah. Zikr of Allah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, so he continues. The one whose soul is serene is greatly amazed by the way people turn away from acts of obedience and turn away what they bring on of delight, comfort, and pleasure, and then they rush into rebellion and lust, and what they hold of grief, estrangement, and bitterness. The possessor of the serene soul may think that the way they taste these two states is the same as his. He then draws on his own experience for comparison and remembers how pleasurable he had once found it to satisfy his lusts and how bitter to perform acts of obedience. Then he understands that he had only reached his present state after a long struggle and by the immense grace of Allah. So, good advice here is to don't look at other people who are going through tribulations in being obedient and adhering to what it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have commanded of us, because it's difficult. And if we all think back to those points and times in our life where we found it difficult and hard, and we had to struggle and strive to get our act together and make dua and ask Allah to bless us and grant us his tawfiq, we wouldn't have been able to do it. Because all of these things that we do in acts of obedience and worship are by the tawfiq of Allah. It's not by nothing that we do. It's by what Allah does for us and allows us to do. And this is only achieved through obedience and constant striving and remembrance of Allah. So when we see people in these types of states, we should make dua for them. We should strive to help them where we can help them, and we should strive to encourage them where we can encourage them. More often than not, trying to be the one that threatens people and remind them of punishment and all these things, that doesn't usually work well when we're encountering with people peer to peer, one-on-one. What we should be doing is always trying to encourage that person that we see that's having difficulty to remember the pleasures and the favor of Allah, to do things to help make things easy for them. If we know that our friend, brother, sister is having trouble keeping up with their prayers, offer to pray with them. Okay? Offer to pray with them. If you know that they're in the house and they're not going to the masjid and not praying, when it's time for the prayer and you have the opportunity and ability, go to the house and pray with them in their house. You're still praying in Jama'ah. You're not praying in Jama'ah. Yes, praying in the masjid is a blessing and it's wonderful. But at times, certain things that we have to do can have more benefit and reward attached to it because of the reason that we're doing it. General understanding, praying in the masjid 27 times better than praying by yourself or praying in Jama'ah. However, Muslim having trouble with prayer, we know that if they're not really dealing with other people, but they will deal with us, we know where they're at. It's not like we're doing something, going out our way to go help them, pray with them. If we were going to go to the masjid and pray anyway, no, I'm going to go over here to the house and pray with the brother because make sure the brother's praying. I'm going to go over here, hey, what's happening? It's time to pray. You ready? I came over to pray with you. That will make, you would be amazed by just how much that would help that person if you did something like that. Opposed to going over there and say, hey, you ain't praying, I ain't going to be talking to you no more because you ain't praying, all that. That don't work. Very rarely that works with us. Don't work. So if you think it worked, I'm telling you what works. Hey, I came to see what's happening, man. I came to, it's time for prayer. You prayed yet? Come on, let's pray and, let's go get something to eat. I know there's a little thing going on at the park. We go to the park after we finish. What's up? You want it? Work wonders. You'll be amazed. You will be absolutely amazed. Try it out. Continuing. You now know that it is but patience to stay away from sins and lustful desires and to keep acts of obedience that makes you reach everything that is good, every noble station, and every lofty state. Has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not said, O you who believe, have patience and persevere, be vigilant and fear Allah that you may succeed. And he said, subhanahu wa ta'ala, And the gracious word of your Lord was fulfilled in the children of Israel because of their patience. And he said, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we made of them leaders to guide by our command when they had patience and certainty in our signs. All ayahs of Quran. As you know, the text is linked in the previous video that I did. I will, it's posted in the WhatsApp group. So, this is on a playlist. Go back through it and look in the description box and you'll find a link to the text in one of the description boxes. It's there. So if you want to go back through these and read with the text that's there. And he closes out by saying, in a hadith says of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, certainty and determined patience among what you possess at the least, or what certainty and determined patience are among what you possess the least. The one who has a share of these is not worried about what he misses in night worship and day fasting. Very powerful statement. So, talking about having certainty and determined patience, yaqeen wa sabr, and being the things that we least possess, because we're very impatient and we lack certainty. Because the more certainty that a person has, the slave has, the more confident they are about what they're doing and why they're doing it. There's no questions. You don't doubt yourself. You don't hesitate because you know this is it. Haq. However, the person who has these things, you have certainty, you have sabr. It's a matter of you being able to have a level of confidence that others don't have. Even if in the course of what you're doing, like he says, if you miss the night worship, by what you miss in night worship and day fasting, is like saying why I engage in these things is because my lack of denial of myself of the other pleasures that can be had, sleep, food, water during the day. I know by me not having these things right now, there's a far greater benefit and reward attached to me having these things later. And I'm good with that. I'm good with that. So that's the end of the lesson for today. Inshallah. Thank you for your patience as always. Again, back home. So, alhamdulillah. Try to get myself together. Last few days of Ramadan. Enjoy going to the masjid these last few nights and praying with the brothers and eating some good food. Inshallah. I will be making dua for all of you, and I ask that you make dua for me as well. Tonight will be the 27th night. This is Friday. This is Jumu'ah Friday. So tonight will be the 27th night. Tomorrow will be the 27th day, Saturday. Saturday night will be the 28th night. Sunday day will be the 28th day. Sunday night is the 29th night. Monday day is the 29th day. Monday night, which is the 30th night, is when you will go out and look for the hilal. Monday is going to be the 3rd of the month. June 3rd, Monday night, you will go out and look for the hilal. If the hilal is sighted on Monday night, there will be no fasting on Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2019, because that will be the first day of Shawwal and the day of Eid, inshallah. However, if there's no reliable and actionable sighting of the hilal on Monday night, Then Tuesday, you will continue fasting for 30 days. And regardless of what somebody says they saw Tuesday night or not, Wednesday will be the day of Eid. But this is all contingent upon whether or not the Hilal is spotted on Monday night. Hope that's clear. If it's not clear, ask questions. Don't do it yourself, because then that means you're acting in ignorance and you didn't know. Then you will be held responsible. May Allah reward you for your patience and your worship, and may He keep us all upon His Siratul Mustaqim. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.